Hey everyone, welcome back to POL SCI 701, Techniques of Political Science Research. This week we're going to talk about probability theory. So until now, we have studied how to identify patterns in data, and we looked at a lot of point estimates, for example, when it comes to interpreting regression coefficients or differences in means. And while a lot of the patterns that we saw are pretty clear in the data, in many cases we kind of wondered to what extent these point estimates can be clearly distinguished from or can be clearly distinguished as systematic patterns from random error or random noise, right? So our task ultimately in statistical inference, of course, is to identify systematic patterns from noisy data, right? And so in order to do that, we need to quantify the degree of statistical uncertainty of our empirical findings, right? And in order to do that, and that'll be the kind of topic for the next week or the next 2 weeks. But in order to do that, we need an understanding of probability theory. What we mean by probability theory, or what we're going to focus on now, is basically a set of mathematical tools that measure and model randomness in the world. Okay. So the topics that we're going to talk about this week are first probability and conditional probability. We'll then talk a little bit more about Bayes' rule, which is a very fundamental rule in probability theory. And then we'll focus on random variables and probability distributions. And last, we'll talk a little bit about two very important large sample theorems that we will use to ultimately then quantify uncertainty in our sampling distributions. All right. So before we get started, let me just briefly review your to-do list for this week. And these are of course, as always, the tasks to complete before our next Q&A session, which is on November 16th. Of course, as always, to go through the lecture videos and please read the 6th chapter in quantitative social science. And then I will also publish today on Canvas as well as our Studio Cloud our next assignment, which will be due on November 20th, so on the Friday after our Q&A session, since every assignment submission now shifted a little bit back. All right, so that's it for the overview. In the next video, I'm going to start talking about probability and conditional probability.